Ari, we have experienced a home playoff game. You hear the roar of the crowd. Notre Dame is running off the field victorious, or they're singing the alma mater right now. They just beat Indiana. They're going to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. What'd you think?
I can't feel my fingers, Lloyd. They're numb. You've had this extra pair of gloves this whole time? Okay, I've got a lot to unpack.
Ari didn't bring gloves.
I didn't bring gloves. It didn't even occur to me. This is the coldest I've been in 5 years because it's the first time I've been in the Midwest in December in 5 years. Andy, where do you want to start? Do you want to start on Notre Dame? Do you want to start on discourse? Georgia?
Let's start with Indiana. Let's start with Notre Dame and Indiana. I mean, Notre Dame mushed Indiana. The last few minutes where Indiana tried to sneak in the back door, I guess if you caught a live line in the middle of the game, you're feeling pretty good at the end there. But Notre Dame was in control the entire game. It never felt in doubt. That 98-yard touchdown run by Jeremiah Love broke it open, and then it never seemed like Indiana had a chance.
So, you know what? It reminded me of the Ohio State game, right? It was the
Indiana-Ohio State game,
yeah, for Indiana. But there's a clear line of demarcation between an elite team that's going to advance to the playoff and a team that is pretty good, but probably not elite.
Right.
And to me, that's the entire point of this.
Yes.
Settling it on the field, going to a place, playing a game, not making a decision in the boardroom, and allowing one team and the other to face off, and the better team advances, and the better team did today. So I think the question really is like,
well, no, there are going to be people who say, oh, Indiana didn't deserve to be there, and this shows that. Okay. This shows Notre Dame's better than Indiana.
You know what this shows? It shows what the playoff is supposed to show. One team was better than the other.
Yeah.
One team's season's over, and the other team is advancing. So I don't know. Like, I wrote a column about this on On3. You guys can check it out. I'm sure it's up by now, about relitigating whether or not Indiana deserved to be here. And I just don't think that's the right play on this. And a lot of people are going to do it because there are SEC fans out there who are passionate and believe that Alabama should have gotten in, even though the debate wasn't even with Indiana to begin with.
I was going to say, it wouldn't have been in this game. Alabama would have been playing Penn State.
And even in the auto bid scenario, like they finished for second place in the Big Ten. Second place teams and third place teams in the Big Ten get into the playoff. That's the system. I think Indiana had a good year, but the reality is that Kurt Signetti, to borrow Lincoln Riley's quote, isn't a magician. He did the best that he can, and he did a hell of a job turning around a roster, but the reality is there's only so much you can improve in one offseason.
Notre Dame has been recruiting at an elite level for a long time.
Yeah, and my buddy Bill Landis is over here. He said this to me. He goes, you know, that's still a really good G5 team. They've got a lot of James Madison players on their team. I'm not saying that they're a G5 team, but when it comes to upgrading your talent, there's only so much that you can do in one offseason to be equipped to play a team that has invested this much, a team that has recruited well, a team that has taken transfers at the quarterback position. You know,
this is a massive Jimmy's and Joe's difference in this game.
And Notre Dame has spent years investing in playing in this game. Indiana invested for 1 year. So there was a clear line. Now, would Alabama have played Notre Dame closer? I think we both would probably agree that they would have. But that's not the point of this.
Yeah,
and you know what the real
Indiana
point of
went 11-1,
and like Indiana had a great year, and they deserve to be here. And you know what the real point to me is? This game shouldn't be about Indiana's candidacy. It should be about like Notre Dame and their ceiling.
Well, and I think that's a really good point.
And like, here's the thing. You know, we had a debate in the press box about whether or not this counts as ending the streak of bowl losses dating back to 1993, right? Right. That doesn't matter. This is the first time Notre Dame has captured a big-time.
This is the most significant the most significant postseason win for Notre Dame since the 1992 Sugar Bowl, which Jerome Bettis was the MVP of.
Right.
If that tells you how long
Jerome Bettis, the bus.
Yes. So it's huge for Notre Dame. Does it mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Yes, it does. Because Notre Dame needed to win a game like this. Do they still need to beat Georgia to prove they are where they want to be?
It's probably to shut people up. I think that if the season were to end next week,
right,
I think Notre Dame would probably be satisfied with how it went, especially after what happened with NIU.
Where did we have Notre Dame in the we had Notre Dame kind of between 6 and 10, right? Yeah, and so if they end as one of the top 8 teams, then that's fine. But you pointed this out to me, and I ended up writing a column about this on On3 because I went down on a kind of advanced stats rabbit hole. There's a very good chance when the lines come out in the morning that Notre Dame is going to be favored against Georgia by a little bit.
Well, that's the thing that was so funny because when we released our brackets, and I don't remember what you had Georgia beating Notre Dame.
I have Georgia winning the national title.
Okay. And I had Notre Dame beating Georgia, and that for obvious reasons, because SEC fans are passionate, loud, and have been used to winning everything for the past 20 years, so I understand it. There's a loud, passionate thud when you see that, because there's a certain level of disbelief that Notre Dame could actually do it. And I think that a lot of that is predicated on that 30-year drought. I think a lot of that is predicated on Notre Dame's previous trips to the 14 field where they weren't able to match up with Alabama and such. And it's a dismissal of what Notre Dame has been this year. And it's been very easy to say, well, that team lost to NIU. They could lose to anybody. And while I agree with that sentiment to a certain extent, I also know enough about the sport, Andy, to know that taking a single result.
You mean like Ole Miss 28, Georgia 10?
Single result.
That was a result too.
Is not enough adequate information to accurately project the future in a sport that is already hard to project. So, like, I'm going to let you speak. I'm talking a lot. But, like, in your column, in our idea, like, it's not crazy to predict that Notre Dame can beat Georgia. The spread will favor Notre Dame. Like, that is the team down there that we're dealing with.
Well, and the thing is, they're very similar. That's what's so interesting to me is watching Notre Dame up close, and we've seen Georgia a couple times this year. Like, Notre Dame and Georgia, very good offensive lines. They are going to try to dominate on the ground. They're going to try to control the game on the clock with the clock. They're going to try to make you make mistakes offensively. One of the biggest plays of this game was, remember, Indiana's driving early,
right?
And then they throw. Was it Watts who picked it off there near the end zone, and it changed the course of the game.
Yeah.
The Love play was great, but that interception, I think, was actually more important in the grand scheme of the game. And if you look at Georgia's best win, like when they went to Texas in Austin, it was forcing turnovers, using short fields to take advantage of a Texas defense that was really hard to move the ball on, but Georgia's defense gave Georgia's offense an advantage there. Both these teams occasionally will get gashed on the ground. It's crazy. They are just decimal points apart in how many yards per carry they give up on the ground. Like Georgia's number 30 in the country, Notre Dame's number 34. They both have question marks injury-wise. Carson Beck doesn't look like he's going to play. I mean, that's the bigger one, obviously, with Georgia with the quarterback situation. But like we saw Riley Mills, the defensive tackle for Notre Dame, go down, sacking Curtis Rourke, grabbing his right knee. Like, we don't know what his situation is going to be.
You know what that game kind of reminded me of a little bit? What Georgia has done to opponents.
That's exactly what I wrote. I said Kirby Smart was probably watching this thing going, boy, I know a team that likes to beat teams like that.
Yeah, where it's just kind of like, no need to light up the scoreboard. No, there's nothing that Indiana was going to be able to do offensively.
It's a classic smushing.
Just a smush, a smushy.
Yeah, that's what Georgia does to you. And that's really how Notre Dame has built this team. And it's interesting because I think we talked with Mike Golick Jr. about this the other day. Notre Dame has been an offensive line factory for a while now. Like they have been great up front. Their defensive line has had moments where it's been pretty good and then moments where it was okay. It's pretty good right now. They got Howard Cross back in this game. Hopefully Mills will be able to play against Georgia. And
we're going to break this game down a lot, but that's the one area that I would be afraid if I were Notre Dame.
Because they're a little bit smaller on the D-line.
They rank in the 50s in rushing defense. As you pointed out, they've played a few triple option teams this year, which could skew stats, but even in the 50s when it came to yards per carry too.
Well, no, they're 34.
34. Well, that's better than 55 or 51 or whatever it is. But like Georgia's going to run the ball.
Yeah. So Cross is 288 pounds. Riley Mills is 295. Like the Georgia counterparts on Georgia's defense are much bigger.
Yeah.
But
their offensive line's huge too, right?
Yeah, but Notre Dame's offensive line is huge. So that part I'm not as worried about. It's really going to come like Riley Leonard, I thought, has looked more comfortable as the season's gone on. What will Gunnar Stockton look like? Because we don't know. This will be his first start. But I will say, I know that the Georgia fans are looking at Notre Dame Stadium behind us as the snow is falling. Actually, it's kind of floating upward now. But I bet the Notre Dame fans remember when they took this stadium over and Jake Fromm made his first career start and beat the Irish. So I imagine there's some Georgia fans going, Gunnar Stockton may be able to beat the Irish in his first start.
Here's the thing, too. Notre Dame will not get national respect unless they beat them.
They have to beat them.
This isn't going to change anyone's mind. If you think that Notre Dame's a fraud and hasn't played anybody, then all you'll say is played anybody because Indiana stinks.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing with discourse as it pertains to Notre Dame's legitimacy has always been, well, they've been on this stage before, and every time they play an SEC team, they get their doors blown off.
Right.
So they have to have a good showing in the Sugar Bowl. I anticipate that they will.
I think it's interesting because I was, the thing we always go back to, and we talked about it with Golick the other day. 2012 season, national championship game after that season. I'm standing on the field before that game. I was standing next to Urban Meyer. And I had covered Florida when Meyer was the coach there. And so we were making small talk. And he's looking at the Alabama defensive line warming up. Yeah. And he's saying, there's nothing like this. Nobody has anything like this. And it was true. At the time, there was nobody else like this. If you look at what you and I we've seen Georgia up close this year. We've seen Notre Dame up close this year. They don't actually look that different. It's not a jarring contrast like it was back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And, back then there were 9 of them on those teams. You know? And like now, if you have 3, that's a pretty good place to be. So like, I think from an athletic standpoint, from a talent standpoint, like the thought was always Notre Dame did not recruit well enough back in the early playoff appearances that they made to maintain the skill.
And they did. And I go back to when they made the 14 playoff. I believe it's 2018. Yeah. And the year that Clemson wound up beating Notre Dame and then beat Alabama for the national title. When Julian Love went down in the Clemson game for Notre Dame, they just picked on his replacement over and over and over again. And it was just, that was it. Yeah.
So, but I don't know that I view the next game, the Georgia game, as a talent dwarfing.
No.
I think that like they similar. Can match up well with them, and they actually play very similarly. And Georgia's not an explosive player or an explosive team in the sense that they're going to go score 50 on you.
If Georgia had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey, I think we're having a different conversation.
Course, but they don't. And that's
anymore.
The reality. Yeah. So, I don't know if it's going to be 2 boa constrictors trying to squeeze each other out, and we might have a 14-10 type of game or what it's going to look like. But I absolutely believe, and those brackets, everyone's like, oh, this is engagement farming. Like, no, I mean that. I meant that. Like, and you know what? We're going to go into that game.
Well, it's not that. It's not that far off. Vegas is going to say that. If you look at the predictive power rankings,
but everybody shut the TV off with this team. They stopped watching.
Well, as soon as they lost to Northern Illinois, they quit watching them. And I think tonight was probably the first time a lot of people have seen Notre Dame in a while.
They didn't have to sweat in a playoff game. And say what you want about Indiana, even if Indiana is just an okay 11-win team and they're not elite, Indiana did not have a chance in the game. Like when good teams play great teams don't look like they can lose. Is there a single point in that game that you thought Notre Dame was going to lose?
Absolutely not.
It didn't even occur to me. So like even if it wasn't the sexiest game, it wasn't the most exciting game, outside of Love's 98-yard touchdown run, there really wasn't very many.
No, Notre Dame put together a couple nice drives.
Yeah, and then Indiana scored a few at the end when everybody stopped paying attention because the game was over, but there was never any sweating. And like getting through a postseason game at home, you're not supposed to sweat if you're the superior team. And you know what? I got news for you, Andy. I know this video is going to be going up tonight, but all 4 first-round games were 2 more multi-score spreads. Like there's going to be blowouts tomorrow, I assume too. So we'll see what happens. But like, if you're a Notre Dame fan, I think that you got exactly what you wanted to see out of this team. It wasn't a 55-10, but like it was a 7-point spread. You didn't sweat. You overpowered your opponent. And you get to move on in 10 days to play Georgia, and that's what you want.
Well, let's talk about the fact that this was at home, that we were standing in the snow in South Bend, the Golden Dome. Hold on. Let's look at the Golden Dome. See the Golden Dome over there? It's a beautiful thing.
That's tripod work. Do you want to go move over there? Do you want to put the dome between us?
We can put. I feel like there's something between us. Sorry. Look at that.
Nothing will ever come between us, Andy. There's the dome right there.
There it is. Beautiful.
See it right there on your screen? Yeah.
Electric. But let's talk about that. We're here at Notre Dame in the snow in a playoff game. It was awesome. The atmosphere was incredible. We're watching the fans file out into the parking lots right now from where we're standing. And it was so much fun before the game. Everybody was having a blast, even though it is bone-chilling cold here. I was watching that they handed out these, the yellow towels that the Notre Dame fans were waving around. Like, it's going to be so stupid when this goes to Bulls in a week and a half.
I did think that there was like this talking point coming into the week that it was going to be overly controlled by the CFP. And
this is a home game.
It felt like a home game. Yeah. It was a home game. There was some in-game entertainment. There's going to be drones at Ohio State on Saturday night. Like, there's certain aspects to it, but like, there's no question about it. that Notre Dame had an advantage. It had its home crowd. I'm very curious to see what the crowd disbursement looks like in the games on Saturday. But Notre Dame really showed out tonight. And you know what? This is a fan base that's remained loyal, bought in. They love their program, and they got a playoff win.
And this was a very heavy. Like I don't think a lot of Indiana fans got tickets. It's hard to tell because everybody's wearing heady coats.
Well, this was the expensive.
Not a lot of
one
team
too,
colors.
right? Like,
this was the most expensive
on game
one.
Time, it was pretty expensive. So I don't know if like the Tennessee Vol takeover
is the Vol Navy going to float down the old Tangy?
The Vol Navy Twitter has had me rolling with all the memes of them traveling up the highway to go up to Columbus. I can't wait to see what it turns out. But like I thought this was incredible. The game wasn't incredible, so that kind of takes away from a little bit.
But we're gonna get a close game in one of these, and it's gonna be spectacular. And the thing is, like, this was so much better than if this had been in a sterile NFL stadium. And you're gonna see it when you go to the sterile NFL stadiums in a week and a half. Now you're gonna go to the Rose Bowl. That doesn't count.
That's not sterile.
Rose Bowl's awesome.
There's mountains and it turns purple.
Rose Bowl accepted. Everything else though is gonna be kind of basic looking, and it's gonna be on the same old AstroTurf. And
I like that AstroTurf, guys.
Well, I mean, it's fake turf down there too, but this is unbelievable. This is gorgeous. This is exactly what college football should be. Put all the games up until the championship game on campus. I'm telling you right now.
I mean, that's going to happen.
Put them there.
Like eventually it's going to happen.
I hope.
I mean, I don't know. You're the business guy here, but I thought this was an incredible experience, and the best thing about being here tonight, Andy, is that in 24 hours, we're going to be in another home stadium watching another playoff game. So
that's right.
But yeah, I think like Notre Dame fans rejoice, Indiana fans rejoice. I thought it was a hell of a season, and if you actually believe that is the a coach that you extended long term, you invested in, that your program can be back here, what a hell of a first step that season was.
That's exactly right. Ari, we're gonna go find you some gloves. We got to drive east.
Your hands
we're gonna be in Columbus tomorrow.